Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a bite-sized beta review. Today we're taking a look at a Sonic game which was never released. It's Sonic X-Treme for the Sega Saturn. I guess you kind of knew that anyway, because the video title sort of gave that away, but never mind. Anyway, the story begins way back in 1995 when Sega decided to produce a new Sonic game, which was going to be the very first full 3D Sonic ever released. And they originally began developing it on the Sega Mega Drive, but they then decided to move to the new 32-bit add-on which was coming out for the Mega Drive called the 32X. That kind of fell through, as we all know, so they then moved development onto the Sega Saturn, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but really wasn't. The idea was that this game was going to become the Sega Saturn's killer title, and many people argue, rightly or wrongly, that had they ever bothered to finish the game, it may have actually saved the console, or at least stemmed the bleeding, but personally I think it would have done for the Saturn what Sonic Adventure did for the Dreamcast, in that it would have probably had its place in history, but I don't think anyone was stopping the Sony juggernaut that was the PlayStation at that point. In total, there were 3 versions of this game in development over the years, and the version we're looking at today is the second iteration of the game, which has been made available to the general users recently by someone called JollyRoger, who's taken the PC source code and the original PC source code, which could only run on Windows 95 and only with a very specific NVIDIA graphics card. I think it was like N1 graphics or something like that. So I mean, that stuff went the way of the dodo long before the dinosaurs did, so that thing just wasn't running on anyone's computer basically, and nobody really had that sort of hardware running around. So this guy called JollyRoger over at sonicretro.org, if you want to go check that out, has taken the original PC version, which doesn't run on modern PCs, and has converted it so it runs on Windows 8. So good lad. Anyway, this build is very early. It's based upon the original version, which was created by 2 people called Offa Alon and Chris Sen, if I think I've pronounced their names correctly, sorry if I haven't. And basically they made a version and they had problems porting it over to the Sega Saturn. They developed it on the PC and they couldn't get it over to the Sega Saturn properly. It was causing them problems, so Sega Japan stepped in and they decided that for whatever reason they were going to get this third-party company called Point of View to try and port it to the Saturn, and that's the version we're looking at today. This version came from them and they went bust quite recently, so when Point of View shut down, that's how this version leaked out. So this is a PC version, but it was intended to be ported to the Sega Saturn by these people. It's kind of weird because they had it running lovely on the PC, solid 30 frames per second on the hardware at the time, but for some reason it was just a bitch to port to the Saturn, and every time they tried to do it they could only get a couple of FPS out of it, so I'm not entirely sure what was going on there. There wasn't really a storyline that was ever finalised for Sonic X-Treme. It was kind of speculated that there'd be a new character, and inexplicably it was named Tiara Bubowski. Not exactly a great name in my opinion, but apparently she was supposed to be Sonic's love interest in the game, and there was also some kind of hastily thrown together plot talking about Robotnik stealing some things known as the Rings of Order, which I guess is just a way of saying, you know that Chaos Emeralds plot we keep using? Totally different. The gameplay in this video is very basic and somewhat broken, but it is an interesting slice in time and it kind of gives us an idea of what might have been. There's a different version of Sonic X-Treme out there which is running on Sega Saturn hardware, which kind of got the fisheye lens and it's much more developed. Unfortunately I can't really find a practical way of making that run, so if I can I'll throw some stock footage of that in here, but there's also a third version out there which is less known about, and it's called Project Condor, and that was developed by someone called Christina Coffin, and that version's engine was originally supposed to be the boss engine. Sega Japan saw it and decided it was the only decent thing about the game, and then decided to have the entire project built in that engine instead, but nothing really came of it unfortunately, and it was cancelled not long after. So ultimately it's a sad story, incomplete game which was never completed. Many of the employees worked themselves literally to near death in a vain attempt to get it out for Christmas '96. In the end though it just never happened, and the game was canned in favour of a Mega Drive compilation. Woohoo! Sonic Jam I think it was called. But at least all these years later their hard work and sacrifice doesn't go unnoticed, and it is at least appreciated if not fully realised. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers lads!